Good evening, everyone.
All right, we're ready.
Oh. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Redwood City School District meeting. Roll call.
Trustee McAvoy. Trustee Wells.
Here.
Trustee Lawson. Here. Vice President Marquez.
Here.
President Diaz-Solcom.
We don't have, I'm sorry. For oral communication, there's no oral. Okay. So reconvene to regular session. And we already took the roll call, so okay, I apologize. And so the report out on closed session is the school board approved legal counsel recommendation regarding NPS placement for a student. And the board received information regarding CSEA negotiations and no action was taken. Again, thank you and welcome to tonight's meeting. If you need Spanish interpretation, si necesita interpretación al español, por favor, llame al 978-990-5137 y presione 837-7041 y el signo de número. If you're speaking, I'm sorry, the public is encouraged to speak to the board on issues concerned, whether or not the issues are on the agenda. To address the board, please complete a speaker's card if you're in person and give it to the assistant Eliana here to my left. If you wish to speak to the board on the subject listed on the agenda, you will be called to the podium at the time of the item is being considered by the board. If the item is not on the agenda, you will be called to the podium during oral communication. Item 8, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic unless otherwise noted. And if you are online, if you need to do speak to the board, please use the Google Doc. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
Yes, I'm wondering if we could move number 10, which is the bond program consent items, to after 7. So between 7 and 8. That way our bond team can leave the meeting and enjoy their evening because they work so hard for us. And then I was also wondering if in addition to that, we could move 14.1 to consent. Unless somebody has any questions, that's a personnel thing. I don't think that one has to stay on, does it? Okay. Okay. All right, and I'll make a motion to approve with those 2 changes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ellie, do we have any oral communication?
So first we'll do the bond program consent
Oh,
items.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the bond consent items.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now, Ellie,
right.
do we have any? Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes we forget.
Yeah. So
We do have a speaker's card. Maria Stockton.
Great, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Maria, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can hear me. Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, President Slocum and board members.
Hold on.
Oh my goodness, there's a
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, Maria, the thing is, I just want to make sure the audience can hear her because we'll be able to hear her through my computer, but I'm not clear if the audience can hear her. Audience, could you hear Maria? If somebody could just let us know in the chat. Oh, never mind. Would be helpful. You know what I mean? Because we can use one of our computers, but I'm not clear.
Yeah, if they're on the computer, it should be able to.
Okay. Oh, you're right, because I'm hearing it. You can hear it? Okay. All right, Maria, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. President Slocum and board members, I'm coming to you tonight. I know I've come to you before in saying how the feeling with the school district with many of the classified has been going down, and we're trying to build up better relations and respect for each other. And we have been given something that we are told that the board members themselves have asked, and that's the change of winter break to a calendar which CSEA and the district have already worked on, and you, the school board members, have already approved. We did that because the district wanted to work on 2-year calendars, and when it was asked, what if Sequoia doesn't want the same dates we choose? We were told that we would not change our calendar. And that's the only, well, not the only reason, but that was a major reason why we agreed to do 2-year calendars. This year already, the school board asked us to change spring break. And that was a hardship for some of our members because we have a lot of people that practice religious holidays. Now we're being asked to change again the winter break for this week or this year. And we kind of question as to what reasoning the school board members have in doing that beside what was relayed to us as solely to go with Sequoia High School. We've asked the district numerous times to give us documentation of how many families go to both. We were asked to survey our members. We asked the district to survey the families because we know this will have an impact on the 185 child care service families. It will have an impact on our families, our classified employees as well. I sent you a letter that was drawn up by the executive board of CSEA along with some of those facts. And we would like you to really consider why we did not refuse, which we keep on hearing the district use when we simply go over all information and say, because of these facts, we choose not to do this here. We would like you to look that over and understand that instead of hearing, well, it would be a nice thing to show the district that CSEA wants to work in partnership, we in turn would like to see that the district.
I'm sorry, Maria, your 3 minutes were up. So now moving forward, item 9, school and community reports. Update from Stanford University on the dual language immersion program, research for Adelante Selby Spanish Immersion School.
So good evening, all. This evening we have Dr. Amado Padilla with us from Stanford University, who you have heard me speak about the research study that they did on our dual language immersion program at Adelante Selby. So tonight he's going to present his findings and give you an update of where Adelante Selby is now as part of the dual language immersion program. So Amado, please come forward. And then there is the mic here and the guys have your PowerPoint. You're on.
Okay. And may I remove my mask, even I always find, just,
It's optional, so don't have to keep- if it's better for you, go ahead.
yeah, just for breathing
Yeah,
purposes.
yeah.
if it's okay. Well, let me begin. I'm very, very happy to be here and thank you very much, Superintendent John Baker and members of the Board of Education. We will be presenting. I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Shinji Chen, who's a research associate at Stanford, who was very instrumental in this project as well as I. The study is entitled, you have copies of the report if you I think those have been made available. The study is called Longitudinal Study of Graduates of the Adelante Dual Immersion Program. And let me walk you through what we did with this study. It's part of the Stanford Sequoia Unified School District collaborative that we have. Why don't we go on to the next slide? The purpose of this study was to investigate Adelante's dual language immersion program through its student data. So we actually did not enter schools or interview students at all. It was just all a data study that was done. And to look at the students through this lens of school achievement data from elementary school through middle school through high school completion, and to get a sense of what was going on with respect to students who had gone through this program in terms of both their academic and their language outcomes. We looked at 5 cohorts of students. These are students who graduated from the 5th grade of the Adelante program over a 5-year period for a total of 322 students whose data that we looked at. And we began with their test data and language data at the end of the 5th grade, and then followed them through middle school, where they took 2 classes each year in 6th through 8th grade in Spanish, and then followed them again through high school until high school commencement. And most of the students, as you know, went to a nearby local high school. Continue. Let me begin to summarize the results. I'll go through this, and if you have any questions, please feel free to stop and ask. Okay. Research question 1 was, do graduates of a Spanish dual language immersion program continue with advanced Spanish language classes and or other world language classes in middle school and high school? The idea is if a child goes through a dual immersion program, do they continue in that language? And what's the benefit of having gone through this program if they discontinue their Spanish language instruction in this particular case? Next slide. And so what these data this is just a summary of data for the students in terms of what Spanish language classes they took in high school. We know in middle school they took a Spanish language arts class, and they took a social studies class in Spanish. But in high school, what classes did they take, if any? And what we see here is that when the students do reach, these cohorts of 5th graders do reach high school, the large majority of them take Spanish for native speakers, 1 and 2 or 3 and 4. Some of them take IB Spanish 4 or IB Spanish 5. Some take AP Spanish. So basically, they are continuing in their trajectory of becoming more proficient in their Spanish language in an academic sense as they emerge through the dual immersion program and into a secondary and high school graduation. Next slide. And this is part of what you would want in this kind of a program. So in high school, a majority of the students enrolled in an advanced Spanish class, which suggests that they aim to reach the high levels of proficiency in Spanish even after the DLI program is complete. And in fact, 42% of the students receive in the 12th grade, apply for and are tested for and receive the California Seal of Biliteracy as graduating seniors. So this is a remarkable achievement. And I think when we looked at other students who went through the California Seal of Biliteracy, was only about 8% of students overall. But here you have 42% of your students. So that's a remarkable achievement. The students are definitely becoming proficient and in Spanish in every sense of the term. Next, the second research question is, do English learners in a dual language program differ in academic outcomes on state mandated achievement tests and other academic indices from English only students? This is a really important question. I mean, if they're in a Spanish immersion program, how are they performing in an English only achievement tests? Okay, and English only achievement tests. So that's the next thing that we're looking at. So now what we're looking at is academic outcomes for 11th grade English language arts scores. And we are looking at them from the standpoint of whether they enter the program as kindergartners as English only, or as initial fluent English proficient, or as reclassified students. And we're looking at them here in terms of their English language arts achievement test scores at the end of the 11th grade. And basically what you see is no difference. These kids are doing very, very well, okay? The red bar, and I want to just call your attention once to the red bar here. The red bar are a small number of children who reach the 11th grade and are tested here, but they are still not reclassified. They are still classified as English learners. So they are long-term English learners. I took a good look at these kids, and most of these kids, and it's a very small number. I think by 11th grade, we are only looking at nine kids at this point. These kids, in one way or another, have either significant health or learning difficulty issues, and so but they are scoring lower on English language arts achievement, but it's only a very small number. Most of the kids go through this program, get reclassified, and on an English language arts assessment are doing very, very well. Let's go to the next slide. Now we're looking at exactly the same data, but now we're looking at math 11th grade CAS scores. And again, the same profile, very high achievement. So in summary, the majority of the English learners in the dual language immersion sample were reclassified by high school, and once reclassified, there were no significant differences in any of the academic achievement measures when compared to initial fluent English proficient or the English only students. Research question 3. Do K-5 dual language immersion students perform on academic measures the same as non-DLI students? Now, this is the real test of the achievement of a dual language immersion program. How do they do in comparison to children that they are going to school with, but who have not been in the dual immersion program? Okay, so let's look at that. And let me draw your attention to one way in which we did this. We created 3 other groups of children from the same districts, from Redwood City into Sequoia High School, 200 children who were non-DLI, who entered as English learners and who were reclassified. Another 200 students who were non-DLI, who were English only students at school entry, and a third group of 200 non-DLI, non-Hispanic English only students. Okay, so this is taking us also into a comparison not only of language, but of children based on ethnicity and how they entered the school and their progression through high school. So why don't we go on? So when we look at this, so we're looking at 11th grade English language arts and math scores on their 11th grade achievement. And if you look at the purple graph, these are the non-DLI students who are English language learners at school entry, and they are the lowest on both the math and the English language arts. The green and the blue. So the purple, the green and the blue graphs are students who were not in the DLI program. The red, in this case, the red graph depicts the students who were in the DLI program. So when these students, when your DLI Adelante students now in the 11th grade are tested, they test above the other groups of students. Okay, so their achievement in math and the English language arts is very, very high. And these are randomly selected. As I said, we created 3 comparable groups of students who were not in the DLI program. So the finding in summary is that DLI graduates had similar or higher scores on standardized achievement measures compared to most of the non-DLI comparison groups when matched for ethnicity. Okay. Now, this is a significant thing because the findings show that Adelante students who began in a dual language immersion program in elementary school and continue with language instruction through high school attain high levels of language proficiency and academic achievement. Basically, you should be really congratulated for this program. It is really a program that is working very, very well in terms of the students maintaining the proficiency in Spanish all the way through school. Many of them achieving the bilingual literacy seal of approval there, and then also showing very high achievement scores in English in both English language arts and math against comparative groups outside of this program. So they're performing very, very well. It is meeting the objectives that you would expect for a dual language program in ways that are very, I think, very, very important. The implications, Adelante offers an enrichment opportunity for long-term study in second language. This is a critical element to becoming bilingual and biliterate. So that enrichment component really works, and it doesn't work to the detriment in any way of achievement in our standardized achievement measures, both in English language arts and in math. So students who learn a second language in a DLI elementary school program and continue in high school reach high levels of proficiency and are prepared to participate in the global economy. And this is one of the gold standards for a world language class. You would expect this kind of thing in a high performance kind of a program such as this. And it basically is, one conclusion I can make is that the investment that you've made as a school district over a long period of time now, people know about the Adelante program. That's also one of the reasons I wanted to study the Adelante program. It is a program that is known, but this is one of the first studies, I think, that even looks at not only the graduates of an Adelante program at the end of the fifth grade, but tracks those students across time through high school completion. And so that's the summation of our report. That's the data that the Superintendent Baker allowed us to have a look at. And that and also the Sequoia Union School District allowed us to look at the secondary level. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for your presentation. Do any board members have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much for the research. That's really interesting, and it is in line with sort of what we thought. And so it's really great to sort of see this research that proves it, right? And particularly showing that some of our students who came to us as English learners are meeting the same academic rigor and standards as our English only students, right? Which is something that we really try to do, right? So they're learning both languages. So that's great. I was wondering, can you remind me, in middle school at Kennedy, what programs are they taking in Spanish?
They're taking Spanish language arts,
Mm-hmm.
and they're taking the social studies.
Okay, right. So they get those two classes continuing. That's what I thought. Okay. And then my other question is, I don't think we have the ability, because we don't have tracking numbers for students that do this, but I was just curious if we have any sense of, or if there's an ability to do research for once they graduate from 12th grade, their college and career track, and, you know, any information there. I think that would be really valuable longer term. I know it's more complicated, and I don't even know if we have, if we could do that.
I would love to do that. I wanted to do a study like this for years and years, and finally had the chance to do it. what happens to these young people when they graduate from high school, and what do they go on to do if they're ready, if they're bilingual? Do they go on in some capacity, at least some of them, to be able to use their bilinguality and their biliteracy? That would be a very important question. I don't think anyone really knows that answer. We just surmise that in one way or another, they're more informed, more articulate citizens in two languages, and that they have the gifts of bilinguality to do daily living in a world that is becoming increasingly bilingual. But I don't have the data for that, and I don't know how to get that data, because that would be really hardly. High schools don't keep track of what happens to the graduates after.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's such a deficit of our system, right? Is we don't really have a way to then monitor for the next 4 or 8 years to
Yeah.
kind of get a sense of, because that's ultimately, I mean, a lot of this is for preparation to be a good citizen in the world and a kind and respectful person, but then also to be ready to kind of join, the workforce, right? Yeah.
There's a multitude of studies at this point on the graduates of programs. We know a lot about what happens to these kids up until the time they graduate from the program, at either the 5th grade or the 6th grade or the 8th grade, whatever the program is. But in this data set, we were able to really follow them through high school, which is unusual. We won't find very many studies like this at all in this literature. So that's
Well, and I'll just say that, I mean, a lot of our conversation is that we want them to be prepared. Our students, we want them to be prepared for high school, so then they can be, successful for high school and beyond. So, what this shows is that we're doing that very much with the Adelante students, Adelante Selby students. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the study and for presenting it here. I think our dual language, our dual immersion programs are wonderful for regardless of which language the student comes to as a native speaker of and which one they're trying to acquire. And that, being bilingual and biliterate is an important skill. It's really, it's beyond just a gift. It's really almost going to become necessity as the modern world goes on. It is a reminder of the importance of reclassification. I realize as you pointed out, the N was small for the unreclassified students, and that perhaps it's a correlation and not a causation to the reasons that they score, but at least it's a signal that that is an important thing, and I'm glad that we focus on that as such an important part. It's our EL progress is part of our LCAP. It's one of our focus goals, but it showed up here as well. And the other variables for the that I was just kind of curious about. I actually don't know how much we've been growing bilingual instruction, not dual immersion, but maybe 50-50 classes across schools. And I don't know if those are seeing sort of similar trends that dual immersion, or if it is truly something about the dual immersion and the setup that is different. I realize that that's out of the scope of the study, but that was kind of noodling in my head, because we have wonderful schools throughout the district. Adelante is of course a jewel, but many of the ones are doing a lot for addressing EL learners, and I wouldn't want that work there to not come through just from looking at this data, to think that what they're doing is not being successful. And so that was one thing that was kind of curious in my mind.
And Mike, to that point, that the schools that do have the bilingual program, and the bilingual program goes maybe to 2nd grade, Liz, and then they're starting to transition in 3rd. And so with that being said, and also they're doing reclassification, trying to get the kids reclassified as quickly as possible. Their focus is more so on moving forward into English and not really maintaining or elevating the Spanish for them at those schools. They just don't have the type of model that can allow to do this. When we presented this was back in the fall. Remember we had, like a workshop or something with several districts that came and you spoke. Liz spoke and I spoke, because Liz is the one that started this program many, many years ago at what used to be the John Gill School. which isn't anymore. Started there, and then it moved up to the Granger Way site. And with that, we knew, those of us who were bilingual educators that at the time and who had these bilingual programs, it was to definitely make them proficient in their language, but at the same time, focus on English language development, which it was called then, and move them into English as soon as possible. And that's something that, you know, I remember when I was at Hoover and I had it, and the parents goes, you need to get them into English. You need to get them in English. But we say, we want you to have a true foundation in your own language. So that move is easier, but also you can continue with the Spanish at home. But what this program does, it starts out with that 90-10 model, where here you are in kindergarten. I speak no Spanish whatsoever, and 90%, as you know, because your kid, 90% of that day is in Spanish, and the other 10% is in English. And then, of course, it gets to the 50-50, and then it moves on from that. And this program, if we had the ability to replicate it, I'm meaning with the number of native English speakers you need, the number of Spanish speakers you need, and definitely getting the staff that's needed for this program, it would be the program that would be better than the, you know, your bilingual program where you're, yes, they're in there for a period of time in their native language, but you want to move them out and give them ELD and get them into English. And this program supports that you're coming out of the program as strong as you are in Spanish, you are in English. And the research behind it shows it. It's just that the ability to do that and to make sure you have the right amount of kids that are English speakers and Spanish speakers, that's where we sometimes have some difficulty. And the other difficulty is the teachers right now.
I do have a little way to answer part of that question. If you recall, we had 200 children who we used as a comparison group, who were pulled out randomly on basis of ethnicity. So I have 200 kids who were Hispanic, who entered school as English language, some as English language learners, some as English only. We compare them when you compare the 200 non-DLI to the DLI students, the DLI students performed at a higher rate on both math and English language arts. So presumably many of those non-DLI students were in maybe a bilingual class of some sort. I didn't look for that, but they might have been. But we do know that when you look at by ethnicity, the DLI students were higher. And when you look at non-Hispanic students in that other 200 group comparison, the DLI students, some of whom were Hispanic, but not all, they performed almost as well or as well. Yeah. So that's that. There's some answer there, but it wasn't part of our, maybe it should have been, but it wasn't.
Thank you for this information. It's the study is really interesting and the data is very interesting. I don't have any other questions other than just curious, of the 322 students that you looked at, did any of them not continue their Spanish education in high school? Did they select any other languages?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's in one of the graphs. Most of the students, the grand majority selected Spanish to continue in Spanish. A few selected other languages. There were a few in French and a few I think in Mandarin, but primarily they all continued in Spanish.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah. And it's in the graph, but again, the numbers were very small. Went in another language.
Great, thank you. And again, I really appreciate the information. I'm actually a parent of 3 children that have gone through the Spanish immersion program. And I can tell you my older daughter just graduated from college and is actually a Spanish teacher. And so she continued with the Spanish, took IB program, the IB program at Sequoia High School. graduated and went on to college. And so I am really pleased to hear that, of course, our English learners, whether English learners or natives or English only speakers, being in the dual immersion program actually benefit from this program. Because again, there will be always lifelong learners. So I do appreciate the research and the information that I think maybe we thought that was happening, but in fact, we are being told that it does make a difference. So I do really appreciate everything that you guys I'm sorry. And then my only question is, from the students or the cohorts, were you guys, I don't know if you're able to disclose this, but is this from like the last few years, or did you go back? I don't know.
It's the most recent 5-year graduating groups.
Great, thank you.
It's slightly incomplete in the last group because of COVID.
Yeah, so just, one other kind of thought. Well, first of all, Dr. Baker, thank you for thinking of, working with Stanford to do this study. I don't know if you came to us or we came to you, or it was a joint conversation.
I think we kind of mutually came
Yeah.
together.
Right. Well, we have such a great partnership with Stanford University in general, and we've had, so many great research projects over the years. And I guess the only other thought I was just thinking about, Dr. Baker, with what you said, and, we've talked about this at other board meetings and when we've been talking about strategic planning or staffing or our schools of choice or all of that is, I think many of us believe that, knowing at least 2 languages is actually a really good thing. I mean, America in general, we're so monolingual with English only, and I think it is a limiting factor. And so what this says is it's such a gift for the students, right? Whether, you're an English an English learner and know Spanish as your native language, or if you're a native English speaker. And then, of course, we have a Mandarin immersion program. So at some point, it would be interesting to do that work too. That's a newer program. But as we think about, resources and staffing and all of that, and as we have retirements from teachers, there may be, I realize it's a big lift to do the program. But I'm not sure, once you get the program up and running, certainly the Adelante Selby, I don't know that it costs us anymore to do if you have the right staff in place and you've done the professional development and all of that. We have the curriculum. I know the Mandarin immersion has cost more, in part because it's new to us and all of that. But anyway, it's just something for us to think about, because, as an example, my daughters did not get a lot of, another language. They had to work really hard in high school. They actually did get the bilingual, the certificate, but they had to work really hard. And they did tell me, they said, "Mom, why didn't we do Adelante?" That would have been a whole lot easier for us. So, and you hear that from a lot of students, so it's just something for us to think about as we think about providing languages to our kids, right? I mean, I think we all know the importance of that. So anyway, I think you just reinforced it with this research.
Thank you.
And,
Yeah.
and when we were meeting with the other districts that time, it was done virtually. But I know out of one of the groups that we were in, because it was Menlo Park, it was San Carlos, it was Woodside, Las Lomitas, and Menlo Park also has an immersion program. And I know Las Lomitas, I believe, wanted to start one, but because of staffing and the native language speakers and Spanish, and of course your English speakers, we had even thought maybe we could do something across districts. And we haven't had that meeting yet, but I don't know, Amado, if you were in that group or not.
Well, John, Shinji and I are actually writing a paper on the Spanish immersion program in Menlo Park. It's a different program than yours. Theirs is a Spanish immersion complete, as opposed to a dual immersion. And the children are different.
Right.
But we are looking at that program as well. But I mean, it is a different program, and I think you and I had talked at one time about a comparison, but the comparison would not be a good comparison because their program is different. Okay. Yeah. But for me, honestly, this was a dream come true to do this study, because it's a study I'd wanted to do a long time, because there are not many studies in the literature of a longitudinal nature like this, and the data, the collaborative allowed that to happen. So I did want to thank you for this. And I don't know if Liz remembers, but she came to visit me in my office years ago to talk about the beginning of this program.
Yeah.
So I've known about it for a very long time, from the initial days, I think. So.
And is the paper actually out if we wanted to
Yes,
send
yes,
a
the
link to people? Mhm.
Yes, yes, we have it. It's here. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
So,
it was
because
published-
I do know, so I sit on the California School Boards Association, so I know school board members across the state. And many of them ask me a lot of questions about our programs because they know that Redwood City is actually well known for our dual immersion program. So anyway, it would be useful. I could send it out to
Yes,
folks.
the
Mhm.
link is here. It was published in Foreign Language Annals this month. So you have it, and there's also a brief report that was done through the Stanford Sequoia Collaborative. So you have two versions of it.
And I'll just mention for everyone's benefit, it did get added to the agenda. I only just noticed, yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it must have got added in the last recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Amado.
very, very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
got it
why,
there.
yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along, there's no board program action items, discussion items. 12.1, first reading and discussion of board policy 1230, school connected organizations. Any questions or comments? I know Alyssa and Janet are part of the committee.
Wendy, do you want to start with an overview?
I do, thank
Thank you.
you. So thank you to the Board Policy Committee. We meet monthly to review the up and coming new and updates from CSBA. And we start with that information and then many times seek county council or information from other directors. And then eventually, of course, it comes to the board as a first reading and then eventually a second reading. So I appreciate the discussion tonight. This first item, and we have 5 tonight to review, but the first one is regarding school connected organizations. And many of us know these organizations on campuses to be PTOs, PTAs, as the most common ones in a preschool through 8th grade environment. And this board policy outlines the relationship that the district has, certainly in regards to hiring personnel. It's common practice for a PTO who is interested in hiring a specific personnel to deposit funds into the district. And then the district draws upon those funds and of course processes employees properly and so forth. So that relationship does happen at some of our sites versus having the PTO hire the individual on their own, because there are other contributions and retirement and other benefits to come through the district, and it's part of a requirement. So this board policy outlines that. It also states that participating in fundraising activities by students or their parents and any donation of funds shall be voluntary. So it points that piece out as well. And then the administrative regulations really breaks down essentially the nitty gritty of the district's protocols and how to manage that relationship. So I know there were a few comments and questions. So I'd like to open it up for discussion or any clarification.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for putting together the policies. And I know this one is kind of related to the next one as well. So but I was hoping that we could sort of you touched on a few of the scenarios, but just to really clarify what it is, maybe touch on some of the scenarios about what this policy means to the school connected organization can do. I think pretty sure that hiring directly paying an existing employee that to do work outside of the normal workday or duties, no, right? Okay. or a person to perform work on campus. I think you'd already talked about like a gardener or a music instructor. They could hire it through the district.
Actually, let me clarify on
Okay.
that. So most, well, most if not all situations and scenarios that we come across are enrichment type opportunities. You had mentioned a garden teacher. That's very appropriate. For example, a contract with Hidden Villa is common, and a garden teacher could be hired through Hidden Villa, and that contractor then arrives on campus to work with students. And the PTO would fund directly Hidden Villa, and the employee is a Hidden Villa employee. So that's one scenario. However, if the person still would need to process through human resources properly, everybody has to process through human resources as adults on campus, even volunteers. But really what we're looking for are people that would fill roles of employees. So core teachers, teachers that are required to do instructional services, even classified staff are all hired through the district. Where the funding source comes from can differ. And I think I really want to make that point clear, because that I think is a major piece to this board policy, is that rather than the PTO making a determination on who is on campus, what is being taught on campus, it's streamlined through the district. And in most cases, the site council is aware if it's programmatic in nature.
I see. So a position that doesn't exist, if like the Hidden Villa example, that would be just directly through the connected organization, the PTO or the PTA.
Right,
Okay.
because an employee's schedule is sort of fixed, right? We're in a union environment, and so classified employees have a fixed schedule, at
Right.
least 3 hours a day. This person could be there twice a week for an hour,
Right.
or something, unique like that. Or be considered a guest speaker, even if it's over multiple times. It's not a fixed position in which we would fly and post the
Right.
contract guidelines.
Okay. So then the third scenario I was wondering about was if it was outside of the school day, non-district employee outside of the school for like a parent training or some
Mhm.
other activity that maybe they wanted to put together, that would
Mhm.
that's allowed.
Right, and under the PTO bylaws, that's acceptable.
My questions were answered by similar to Mike's when you and I spoke, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts on this one? We do not.
Okay, so 12.2, first reading and discussion of board policy 4136, 4236, 4336, non-school employment.
So this particular board policy, there are two that are attached to this board memo purposefully. Board policy 4137 has become outdated through CSBA, and so the recommendation is to delete that board policy from our board docs because the content has been incorporated into the other board policy that is here, board policy 4136, 4236, and 4336, non-school employment. The critical areas in this particular policy really are differentiating between school-sponsored intervention or enrichment activities after school, which is common practice, a homework club, an after school or a school-sponsored, even PTO-sponsored enrichment activity, et cetera, which is funneled through the district, versus employees who may want to have their own business, so to speak. And in most cases, in this particular one, is tutoring is a perfect example. So tutoring, we understand that teachers are requested to tutor, other staff are requested to tutor, and there is a process already outlined in the district for that to occur. This change is really about allowing flexibility for teachers to be able to, through the proper channels and processes, use the school campus, in most cases their classroom, if needed, to provide that service after school, assuming that they complete the facilities use form. There's usually a fee attached, insurance, liability, et cetera, all of those things, because it is not sponsored by the school. So this particular board policy differentiates between school-sponsored and non-school sponsored activities, number one. And then what a teacher is doing in that classroom or another member with their business after school. So that's why they have to go through the proper channels. You know, a teacher might say, oh, I'd like to have a summer school program and use a facility. Well, that's like any other partner in that particular case that would want to use our site for their own purposes. So this board policy is differentiating the two of them and the communication with the supervisor. So since this board policy was updated, I did reach out to county council regarding it, and Ilana thinks this is perfectly fine, except she recommended we add one item that we receive written approval from the supervisor for the employee to use the facility, their particular facility, but that the rest of it, she said, was perfectly appropriate. So I wanted to pass that along. Since I have not, that was just this afternoon. I will for the second reading, definitely. Are there other specific questions on this policy?
So I just want to make sure I understood it right. You're saying that any RCSD employee could tutor a student, right? Regardless of whether they're in the classroom or not, they could do it privately. If it's off campus, no problem. On campus, they can do it, but they need to get approval, whatever the changes are, they're going to come in and pay whatever. Okay.
Right. What an employee decides to do on their own personal time off campus is of course their choice, regardless of the classification of the employee.
Yeah.
However, if a service is being provided on campus, then the district is involved in the facilities use process and the approval process.
Okay. And then the part that I thought was tying back to the previous policy was, so could a PTO, like a school connected organization, are they allowed to pay directly for tutoring?
That's a great question.
Okay.
So, yes, however, just like any other contribution, it needs to come through the district. And we do have union rates for teachers specifically for intervention and supplementary instruction, which is $55 an hour. And so if it's a school-sponsored event or group, then yes. If it's a private citizen teacher renting space,
Right.
then that would be a relationship that individual would have with the PTO.
Okay. So the PTO would be funding the initiative that would run through the district.
Right.
Okay.
Almost like another private organization,
Right.
like any other private organization that might be on a dance group, or it just happens to be
Be the
academic in
district.
nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to say that we actually spent quite a bit of time on this particular item because, you know, our old language, we prevented teachers from tutoring their own students in their classroom, paid tutoring, you know, outside of the work environment or whatever. So after a very long conversation, we decided to take that out. So given everything that Wendy just said, if the teacher wanted to privately go off and tutor, it's not going to limit which students that she or he or they are tutoring to. At the end of the day, we thought there was more pros to allow that flexibility than cons. If it becomes an issue, then we would need to revisit it, but we don't see it as an issue. I think, you know, years ago we had added that in part because we wanted to make our homework club successful and other sorts of things. There was reasons for that. But anyway, so that is one of the big changes. Yeah. But I think what we've tried to do is work within the rules the district has and the agreements that we have with our teacher union, right? Because we have a whole contract with them in terms of how this is supposed to work, how they get paid for the extra hours after school. So we need to make sure we're honoring that legally. And, you know, also we want to work with our teachers union, but allow flexibility to the individual teacher that what they do on their own time is their own time. And then it does give some additional flexibility for parent groups or individuals to, yeah, I think you get that, but yeah.
No, that's good to hear.
Yeah, but
Thanks for
we
the
would
update.
welcome, you know, look at the language because you know, we did spend a lot of time on it and we did tweak the CSBA language for this particular one, trying to make it work for our district. From what we had heard, because we've had some previous meetings where we've been hearing from some parents, right, and gotten some emails. So, is that accurate, Wendy? And okay, Janet, and then John even joined our meeting for a short bit.
I'll just say real fast that I mean, I think that came through in the policy, but I knew that there was a change there, and having read the old one, because that was coming down, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
Yeah. So
exactly.
I was actually glad to hear that there was a lot of discussion around it and that was the intended outcome from it. So thanks.
Okay, and then funny that you say this, Mike, because that was kind of my concern, having read the first one, and I was a little confused because at one point I thought I was just reading, first reading and discussion of this policy, but yet the other attachment was there. So I was like, wait, what's going on? So then Wendy and I did speak as well. I think my only comment would be too is, and I'm not sure if this applies, but on page 1 of the board policy, it almost looks like everything is in bold, like it's all new language. Should we have had some strike through of language that was there on the prior board policy? Or am I still getting confused with maybe the language from 4137?
So 4137 will be eliminated altogether. So it will no longer exist.
So is the language under tutoring all brand new language based on the board policy committee?
4137 is just the old language.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry.
So she's looking at the tutoring section on the
The new one.
4136, and the
Oh,
tutoring
okay.
section is all new
Yes.
that the policy committee put in.
Yeah, so if you look at it, this was an existing policy that was adopted back in November 4th, 2009. So CSBA, had they updated it as well? And then we looked at theirs and then we revised it. So what you're seeing on the bold or the strikeouts is in relation to our 2009 policy. So that's where we're striking out language from the 2009 policy and we're adding language. But in the language that we came up with, we looked at the CSBA policy that also would have had strikeouts in bold. But then in addition to that, we took in all the input we had been hearing this last year and knowing our district, and then we revised it. So what you're seeing is a combination of the conversations that Janet, Wendy, John, and I had, and the CSBA language. So it's a change from the 2009. Does that make sense?
It does, but I
Okay.
think, and I'm not sure
Oh.
right now, because having the screen and looking at both, I want to say if I did my homework correctly, I looked into Assembly, which is a new Gamut online platform. And I want to say that the board policy from CSBA had not been updated recently. I think the last time they updated it was like 2008 or 9. So that was just my concern with the new language. And then one of my more of an, it just felt like an issue to me was, obviously we're going to allow the teachers to do this. And are we going to, some kids would eventually get more tutoring. Are we, obviously, is it going to be up to the teacher because it's going to be a privately, tutor session where are there going to be tutoring the kids that are actually really behind in their classroom, or are they going to just open it up to, what I mean? I don't know where, and obviously this would be more of a teacher conversation. I don't know if at that point it's a teacher and administrator to talk about where do they draw the line, or because they're tutoring, we're just allowing them to use our campus, period. So that was my question.
Well, I believe Liz has spoken in the past about tutoring opportunities that students are being given in general around our campus that is school sponsored, district sponsored. So that's one opportunity for children to have tutoring after school as needed. And in the past, we've called it homework center and other types of venues that are school sponsored. But this board policy does allow for a parent to say, gosh, I want to hire a tutor. Oh, you happen to be on campus. My child's on campus. Can we have you tutor right now here in your classroom? And then the teacher, and assumingly goes through the proper paperwork and then is able to do that. So I don't think we have very many in our school district that do this, like fewer than 15 district wide, I would imagine, that would, either are tutoring people and would like to do it on campus, or have been tutoring people, but not their own student, because that previous board policy did allow for that, right? So I don't think we're talking about a large number, but this new board policy will also require the supervisor's approval. So that will then allow us to really have some hard figures and be able to track the data accordingly, so we can see if there's a monumental difference by site.
And then again, one more question is there going to be some sort of rules around when they can actually start tutoring after school? Because I know there are some teachers that actually stay after school to like help their students, not necessarily. I don't know if it's part of their contract, right? That they have probably an extra 30 minutes after school. So when are we going to know that having or allowing teachers on campus to tutor their own kids is not going to impede their work hours?
So the facilities use agreement requires the person who's renting space to dictate when they would like to be on campus. And with that written approval from the supervisor, assumingly the principal, they can check the bell schedule, because yes, it would have to be after their contracted duties are over. And then their own private life begins. And in this case, it would be renting space from us to use for tutoring services as their own private business, not affiliated to the school in that private session.
And Wendy, the contract does indicate that after school, I know there is a before school when you have to be there. What is the after school? It doesn't exist, correct?
A teacher works a 7-hour day.
Correct.
So it varies per site, but it's 15 minutes before instruction starts plus 7 hours is the end of the workday for teachers.
So it would be different from school to school. And after that 7-hour day is completed, then if they go and have followed the proper procedures, gotten the proper signatures and so forth, then they could go move forward and do their own tutoring. The majority of our teachers do work in an environment utilizing the different types of programs that Liz has put in place in staff development. The majority do that. And that's done, after school ends, and there's a percentage of time that they're working with the kids and then the kids leave. So, but I think, as you pointed out, there are very few teachers, I think, that are going to be operating in this fashion. Very few.
And then I guess my comment would be, we're assuming that there would be very few, but I would say it would be great to inform all teachers that this policy is taken, a shift. And so that maybe those teachers that are not tutoring or currently tutoring would have that opportunity to offer their tutoring services to, other Redwood City kids. So for those that choose to tutor, of course.
We can do that after the approval, definitely. Yep.
Okay. If there's no further questions or comments, then moving on to 12.3, first reading and discussion of board policy 4141.6, 4241.6. Concerted action, actions, work stoppage.
Yes, this is a new policy for our district. And so therefore you can see through the attachment, there aren't any strike throughs or bold areas. But there is a new law, AB 237, which prohibits our organization from discontinuing employee contributions for medical coverages should there be an authorized strike as defined by law. So this information is new to our district. Are there any questions?
Okay, no, having heard none. Moving on, 12.4, first reading and discussion of board policy 6173, education for homeless children.
Yes. So this is an update to our current board policy, reflecting a new law as well, AB 27, which manages really the identification of homeless students and the connections that they have with the district in various forms. So, and the ARs, the administrative regulations, also are updated in this particular case. I did pass this through our student services director, Antonio Perez, to review, and he said we're compliant with all the new items in here. I did have one question from a board member regarding an administrative regulations regarding the matriculation from students. And so I received clarity on that, Cecilia. And I just wanted to point that one out. It was on page 7, number 2, regarding a student that starts in our district and matriculates to the high school. There would be no difference of placement for the child, whether it's elementary to middle to high school, whether the student is homeless or not homeless. There wouldn't be any differentiation between that process that occurred, which we're not doing now, but I think in some more complex districts or scenarios with enrollment and so forth, this board policy just ensures that homeless students will be given the same treatment in these decisions as non-homeless students. So that was one thing I wanted to point out. There was a recommendation, but I believe the understanding is about matriculation between elementary to middle to high school, and allowing that process to unfold regardless of a student's status. Yeah. So I wanted to point that one out. But are there any other questions regarding the board policy or the ARs?
And a couple questions about it. It mentions that there's an annual PD, and I was just curious. I don't know if you actually, have this information, but like, what did that encompass when it was last offered?
Liz, do you have that answer? Homelessness, working with students who are homeless? Not this year. Okay. All right. I'll need to get back to you on
Okay.
that one
What
then.
Antonio did is at one of the principals meetings, he went through the guidelines of homeless and then all the information that once you receive information about the student in your classroom that's homeless, these are the different resources that you have access to. And he gave that to the principals. He didn't do a staff development, professional development to teachers, but he gave it to the principals at one of our principals meetings. And there's also a link to where the resources that we have, where the resources that the county has, and the resources that the county office of ed have, plus the person at the county office, if there's any more information or questions that they had. But we didn't give it to the teachers, we gave it to the principals. And our assumption was, and I think he also said, share this with your teachers and you know who your homeless kids are. And if you look throughout the district, we do have some kids that just, all our schools except for one.
Like 120. I think it's all the schools.
Yeah.
Has at least one. I don't.
There's all
we'll
but- You could be right. I thought
Yeah.
there's all but one, but go ahead.
um,
But that's what he did.
Okay.
That's what he did.
And then the other question I'd asked about it was, there's the board's supposed to get a report on school attendance, disaggregated by, there's a couple of metrics in there, student achievement and stuff disaggregated by the homeless population. I know I've seen that before. I kind of think it might have been an MTSS committee and maybe not at the board level. I just wasn't sure when does that happen? Do we get that?
You are
like-
going to be getting
Okay.
scores and a few,
Not disaggregated by homeless, so.
no, not disaggregated by homeless, but So what we could do is we could definitely identify those students and then we could get that information. So we won't put, just
Right.
student
Yeah.
and you'll find out,
Yeah, I just
we won't
wasn't
even
sure.
mention the school they're at. We'll just, mention
Yeah.
homeless population, number whatever, and
Yeah.
we can do that. We can get that done. Because we have the list of all the kids.
And then the last question was actually for the policy committee. You all have been so focused on, done an amazing job of being gender neutral and changing policies and adjusting that. And I was wondering, I don't know why it jumped out to me on this policy. I'm sure it's been in there before, but have you considered person first language in our policies? So instead of homeless children experiencing homelessness and trying to adopt that. I don't know if that conversation has come up, but that might be the next wave of more inclusive language
Right.
for us to adopt in our policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that's not something that we have discussed, but I think it's a good thing for us to consider. Yeah.
And thank you. I know we have one more, so I could say it at the next one, but like all of these policies, it's just a ton of work for the policy committee. I appreciate it.
We have fun.
Lisa's been doing it for quite a while. Because you're doing it with me. I know. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so moving on, 12.5, first reading and discussion of board bylaw 9322, agenda, meeting materials.
So this particular bylaw was updated for SB 274, which requires districts with a website, which is ours, of course, to email a copy of the link or the agenda. It should somebody request that information. And so that seemed appropriate for us to include, of course, and it's a law. And so that was easy. But anyway, this one was pretty direct. Are there any other questions? We actually had one come in from a board member asking if we could, in one of the areas on, let's see, the bottom of page 3, to state that the superintendent should mail, or the suggestion was email, a copy of the agenda and all the documents to any person who requests the item. It's an interesting quandary because government code states mail. I don't think government code has been updated like snail mail to include the email function. So typically we don't change government code. It's not a recommendation to do that within our board policy committee for ed code or any other government code. But I just wanted to bring that to our attention, that certainly in this day and time, that could be a very feasible option. But technically, the government code doesn't state as such.
It's at the bottom of 3. It starts at the bottom of 3.
Okay. What we could do is potentially add, it's a good point. What we could do is potentially add something that if the person requesting the documents is okay with us sending them via email, we could do that. Of course, if they're not okay with it, then we would need to mail them. So we could meet the letter of the law, like of needing to mail them. But you're right, like there's a lot of people, they just prefer having an email, they'd rather have them electronic anyway. I don't know if there's a way for us to do that, but my guess is we don't get asked this too often, do we, Ellie? So it hasn't been a big burden.
In my almost 10 years here, I've never been asked. They do request the link
Yeah.
to Agenda Online, now Board Docs. And sometimes they will request a paper agenda. So I send them the copy that I provide to you
Okay.
during the board meetings, but no, never.
Or the recording, remember?
Yes, the
Mhm.
recording was very popular, but now that we have it up on our YouTube, It's never requested anymore. So I think in
Oh,
that
that's a
area,
big time savings for you, isn't
yes,
it?
We
yes.
had
So
one of your neighbors used to come in all the time.
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, then I don't know if we need to add that or not. Maybe we just leave it the way it is and it sounds like it's working. Cecilia, unless, or I don't know who had the comment if we wanted to.
Yeah, and then my other thing, and again, maybe because it's ed code, that can't be changed, but if you read that sentence, I'm gonna try to look where it's at. It's right after, so starting of page 4, it says the material shall be mailed at the time the agenda is posted or upon distribution of the agenda to a majority of the board. And so to me was like, it gets sent to the entire board, not the majority, right? So that was just my,
That's funny. Yeah.
Packets
it
used to
just-
be delivered to houses.
Yeah, it used to be.
I know when I started, I would get
packets,
the
remember
big
the
old
packet?
package. And it was actually kind of a pain because let's say you started traveling on Thursday, you didn't get the package until you got home, maybe on Monday or whatever.
But I
'Cause
think
it
that's
would-
what it's referring to, is if once 3 board members have it
Oh,
delivered to
that's
their
what
house,
it is, right? Because of the quorum.
then it
thing.
needs to go out to the person who requested it.
Yeah.
I think that's what that means.
Yeah, having it online is awesome. You can just get it anywhere.
okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
So
Well, and I'll just say that we were one of the first boards that adopted agenda online when it first started coming out and all of that. And I remember we were sort of leaders in that area of going online, and it did make it easier for our community. It's really, now I think most districts do, but
So we could suggest at the bottom of page 3, moving into page 4, after the government code notation, to state if an individual requests the documents and or the agenda, these items will be emailed, by email, these items will be emailed to the
Yes,
individual, because it separates it from changing government code,
Yeah,
but then it
'cause
just adds the option.
I like that idea. Yeah, we really, we shouldn't change government code and we need to follow it. So yeah, I like just adding that. Sounds good, Wendy.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. So moving on to consent items, can I get a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Action item 14.2, recommendation regarding adoption of resolution 35, year-end budget transfers.
This is a resolution that comes before the board each year, and it's put forth by the business office. And if you don't have any questions, we can move forward with it.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Board and superintendent reports. Any reports from board members?
I have 2 things to report. Attended the Measure U Oversight Committee, which was a hybrid meeting, a couple of people in person, many of us online. And the LCAP meeting met again. We broke into, probably did something else too, but I remember that we broke into subgroups and we were discussing each goal to sort of talk about, what we thought was stuff we should keep, what should change, and what maybe to add. So it was good meeting.
All right. Let's see. So I attended the CSBA board meeting last Friday, and then we had delegate assembly on Saturday and Sunday. And we went over a lot of the legislative advocacy priorities, and we actually broke up into groups and brainstormed on all sorts of things. So across the state, we were helping kind of set the governance first agenda. And then we actually voted on the top priorities. And they were all the things that we're talking about, like, getting special ed, additional special ed funding, pension relief, mental health, anyway, before and after care, schooling, teacher and staff shortages. I mean, just all the stuff that we've been talking about. So there wasn't really anything that surprising there. And then we did talk about some ballot measures, and we got an overview of the budget, which I think by now probably everybody's seen. And of course, we're basic aid, so the budget is a little bit different for us. But I will say that locally and statewide, we're still advocating for some additional pension relief because we didn't see that in the government. And that would really help us because all of those are going to jump up at the end of this school year again. So we're actually meeting with Assembly Member Kevin Mullen next week to again do a double down push. And then we did a CSBA action alert. I don't know if you guys did that, but you can actually modify what you say to them. So I really asked for pension relief and assistance with TK facilities, because that's another thing that's sort of an unfunded mandate for everybody. So anyway, just know that we're continuing to advocate right down to the wire at the end of June. So we'll see if we can get some additional assistance there. And then we had a joint CSBA Region 5 and Region 20 meeting, and we actually got to talk to Senator Cortese, who's out of San Jose. I don't know if any of you were on that meeting, but he used to be a school board member and a city council member. So he's been really great in the state legislature working on different student issues. So that was good. We must have talked to him for about 45 minutes and just expressing, again, we talked about pension relief and special ed and some other mental health and some other things. I do agree the LCAP meeting, you did a great job. You do a good job with the agenda. The breakout rooms are always really, really good. Lots of deep and rich conversations there. Redwood City Together, I did go to that meeting. I don't know. I think we got a kind of an update for the year and talked about a few priorities there. And then they did mention, I guess, so you're doing the executive. And that means actually, Janet, you and I need to talk about, because I think there's an expectation that one of us or together we're co-chairing that group, which I'd kind of forgotten about that detail.
Yeah.
So anyway, we should talk. That was the major surprise for me at the meeting. I'd just forgotten about that. So anyway, I'm sure Janet and I are happy to serve. We'll just have to think about that. And then Bond Feasibility Committee, Janet, you can talk about the details there if you want, or anyway, we had one. Okay. And then I did go today, this was fun. I went out to the school site. I went out to Clifford and they had their move-a-thon day, and it must have been 100 degrees on that black pavement, but the kids were having a great time. Teachers and parents were involved, and I think it looked like they had a lot of the 8th grade students out there helping direct activities, which was really fun. So that's it.
Was that feasibility one on a Friday that I said I couldn't attend?
Oh, maybe that's why you
I think
didn't have it on
I
there.
wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah, so we continue on the bond. We're having feasibility committee meetings, and yeah, I think that was one you couldn't make it to.
So I did attend the North Star Forward Committee meeting. It was our last one where John just presented the 4 options that he's now sent out to board members, and we're all discussing in our 2x1s with him. Let's see, John and Wendy and I had our CTA Climate Committee meeting. And then I attended the, Cecilia and I both were at the induction colloquium at Henry Ford, and it was really nice. Nicole Crawford did a great job on it. It was out in the lawn, kind of under the oak trees, and it was just a really nice setting and so nice to be in person with the teachers. And I just really enjoyed that event. So. I don't know, but when
There's 35 induction candidates, and let's say about 11 year 2. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And our great mentors.
So again, I attended the North Star, Academy, North Star Forward Committee with Janet. Also the induction colloquium at Henry Ford. And just my comment on that was, I do appreciate what the mentor teachers are doing for the incoming teachers. And then obviously the willingness of all our first and, second year teachers collaborating. And so it was nice. We got to sit around the table, and then they shared, what they like, what they're doing, what are some of the things that are working and what are things that are not working. but everything, it was a really nice event. And then also attended the Superintendent Advisory Committee where Dr. Baker, gave the committee a lot of the information of things that are happening in Redwood City, which I personally appreciate a lot because with our communications director. And so you can probably talk a little bit more about that one because I didn't take very good notes. on that.
That's okay. So I attended a lot of things, so I'll just state some that were not presented earlier. So we had a K-12 collaborative meeting with Stanford, and Liz and I went, and so did Leslie Denali. And it was the school districts who are in the collaborative, and that all of us who feed into to the Sequoia School District were there. It was lunch, and then it was a meeting afterwards to determine our next steps for the next school year. So we were there a week ago, Tuesday or something like that. And then we did have Superintendent's Advisory Council. It was a really good meeting. We went over definitely the new cabinet members that are going to be starting on July 1, gave a little background about them. We also talked about new leaders at the school sites, a little background about them also. We talked extensively a bit about the teacher shortage, and put a plug out there. If you know anyone or if you are interested, we have many, many openings, especially in special education, the RSP, and also in our middle schools, the math science, language arts, social studies. And I'm speaking the middle school portion of the K-8s. So we talked about that. We talked about upcoming meeting in the fall, in which it's really going to be important that Rick come to this first meeting. I want to give him a budget overview because, as you all know, when you see the budget in the next few weeks, we're doing really, really well next year. It's 2 years old. And Mike and I kind of look over them. We kind of look at it all the time like that. We're concerned about. And I also, after I finished, I just kind of opened it up for anyone to ask any questions that they want to ask. And so it was quite interesting to listen to the questions that were asked. Some of them were in the arena of our school of choice, and looking at school of choice and possibly the timeline of that too, and how that has come up because of an extra class being started in the school or so. That piece. And the other piece was when we're with our school of choice, to also consider if kids are moving from one school. They're saying that at one school site, there isn't room in that grade level, so a child comes across El Camino to a school on the west side. But then there is a space for that child at their home school. They should be able to go back because the parents going back and forth, and the kids are coming late. That's something we need to look into. Another thing that was talked about was, how important it is for children to be at school next year. We showed, yes, COVID is on the rise. We had a copy of the dashboard up there, but wanted to make sure that everyone understood we have plenty of PPE. We are still following the protocols. We are still strongly encouraging masks, and we will continue to do that throughout the summer. And I did indicate there's new guidance coming out from the public health department, but it won't be out for a few more weeks. And then we talked a little bit about open house because some teachers, I think, were a little skittish about open house and having families coming. And well, we said, it's strongly recommended that parents wear a mask. You wear a mask as a teacher, as you model that. Keep the doors open, keep the windows open. You have the opportunity to have windows, open them up. Here in the district office, there's no way we can open a window. We don't, but you have that, so do that. And we had a question that I have to get back to one of the Adelante Selby parents. As we move up the grade levels, sometimes kids leave and then you have the combination classrooms. And this is how the discussion of having a good discussion about the budget, because and the parent did say you are basic aid now, so you don't have to worry about how many kids in the class, kids attending every day, or kids, how many in the classroom? I go, yes, but you have to understand there's only X amount of dollars that the district is getting, and we are spending more than what we're taking in. So you need to really understand that when you find out that, no, I'm not going to let you have another teacher, or no, it's great that you have the 18 to 17 kids in your classroom, and we didn't do anything about that, but we cannot continue to do that. And so that's why I said I will have Rick come into the first meeting to really have them understand that. So I thought it was a good meeting. I thought it was a really good meeting. The other item that, and I know I've only met with one board member so far this week, and I'll be meeting with the rest of you. I did have myself, Tina Mercer, Susana Garcia, Nick, and Nick. We met with Roosevelt parents who are fifth graders. And remember, I had talked to some of you previously at meetings, and we're going in the manner now down this road where we don't have any sixth grade teachers for that school next year. So it was brought to the attention of parents that attended last night. We had a meeting that started at 5:15, and there are about 35 parents, and I was hoping we would get at least, it's like, we should have had close to 70 there. So we told them what the problem was. We explained that we have been looking for qualified teachers since February. I told them, if you would like, go to adjourn.org, just look San Mateo County, and you'll see the slew of positions that are open up and down. And I'm just saying, just look the county. This is not the state, just the county. And we're all vying for these same applicants that would be applying at other school districts. So instead of telling you, right before school starts, let's make a plan now. And so there were questions that were asked, and there are some that said, well, I'm here for my homeschool. Can I go back to my homeschool? And I said, well, I need to find out if there's space. Definitely. So we're working on those pieces, but the two choices are McKinley and Kennedy. And talking to, and you all received this evening a letter that went out that we finally finished crafting really late this afternoon because of other items that came forth today. That went to all the fifth grade parents. Michelle Ramon put together a podcast for Spanish-speaking parents. We had quite a few there, but we still missed a lot. So she is contacting each and every one of them to watch this podcast. You have questions, get back to me. So there's that going out. There's a letter that's going out. And then Tina and Susana during open house on Thursday night are meeting with any parents who still have questions to meet with them from 6 to 7. I believe it's in the library. And then we are also starting, today is Wednesday, we're starting tomorrow, right, Wendy? We're starting with this letter with parents that if you know where you want to go, you need to call the district office, this number between this hour and this hour, and let us know. We'll have people designated to talk to you. So it's unfortunate, that we're going in this manner, but we just don't have the staffing. There's also an issue at Garfield and at Hoover, but the two principal, I should backtrack, staff development, and I'm talking Kathy James, Sarah Cullum, Kendall Klein, been working very closely with those two sites, put together wonderful options of how they could maneuver, but it means losing a grade level or so at each of the school sites and kind of combining. So I know both Lupus, Lupa T and Lupa G, we're meeting with their staff to see how we're going to do that. And Liz and I need to follow up. We have not met with the parents yet because I want them to have this plan with staff down first, and then we can meet with the parents. And again, it's because of the teacher shortage. So doing that, and we'll talk more at our meetings when the three of us meet. Lisa and I kind of spoke about this earlier this week. So Roosevelt is moving. It's moving. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I went to the May Revise meeting at the County Office of Ed. And as you pointed out, Yes, there is no additional funding for special ed. It's like $820 per kid. I was like, what? I looked at, and Rick was with me. I looked at Rick. And then, of course, the pensions, there are no monies there for the pension plans whatsoever, like previously. There is some discretionary dollars that we will be receiving. It's a block grant money, and it's could be we're if I did the calculations correctly, and Rick is going to do them himself, it could be anywhere close to $7 million for us. And this is discretionary. It's one-time dollars. It's well, okay, one time, so no, can't put it in salaries, right? But it's for additional mental health. It's additional support for kids who are having issues. If you can expand your school day, to have teachers be there, it's for that. So they think that will definitely pass. There's a but, though. There's all these other things that the legislature does not want to fund, like some of Linda Darling-Hammond's pieces that she wanted for teachers and to pay for college work and credentialing. They can say, well, take it out of that discretionary dollars that you have up here. So we'll see what happens. As I said, Rick Edson was at the meeting with myself, and his official last day in Santa Rosa is June 30th, but he's finishing up on the 10th and is taking vacation time. So he will be meeting with myself so that we can really work very closely with Priscilla and really see, hopefully it passes on the 15th, June 15th, and see where our dollars are and what that means for us. So yes, it's not what we had hoped, but at least if those discretionary dollars could make us, allow us to continue, especially with our mental health clinicians, most likely probably still continue with the reduced class size in K1 and 2. I'm not sure about, we did some MTSS, but we did some of that out of the LCAPs. So probably won't have to worry about it, but it will keep us afloat for a little bit longer than I thought, if it happens. And talking to Rick, he really thought it was going to, because that's something that was a real push from all the superintendents, CSBA, AXA, CTA. The only thing that I was very disappointed about, and we've been getting these emails about TK, and I've been talking to parents. I'll talk to more about this individually with you. For those of us that are basic aid, our TK is unfunded. We were all in there. Why? And I know Liz kept, she says, you're not getting any extra money. You're not getting extra money. And I said, yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're not getting any extra money. So I was very disappointed when that was definitely, but we all said that's not fair. Well, most of us that were at the County Office of Ed were basic aid with the, I was disappointed to really hear that. That's my report.
Okay, information on the San Mateo County Investment Fund. Okay. Correspondence.
I think, like Dr. Baker said, just emails about TK.
Okay, and then I know I got an email from Jessica Shade regarding, she wants to talk about the child nutrition program. And then I don't know if we got all copied on an email with the parent from North Star. I don't know if you guys got that email.
The testing.
Oh, right. Yeah, we all got that.
That was it for me too. Other business suggested items for future agenda?
Music program on Friday, 9:15.
9:15. There.
So it's everybody.
Your mic.
So it's all the music teachers bringing all of their students to mostly do some recording because they won't really be performing for people. So they're performing for each other and there's going to be recording taking place. So you're all invited. We'd love to have you there, but it's not the traditional,
Right, it's different.
different.
And that's at,
It's in McKinley
in
Gym.
McKinley. Oh,
Mhm.
oh, in the gym.
In the gym.
Okay. I thought-
Are there any change? So are there any changes to the board agenda schedule?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And then we have the return that's already.
It's on Thursday. Yes.
Right?
Tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, right?
Okay, and then with that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn in memory of the 19 students and 2 adults that passed away in the school shooting earlier this week in Texas.
I'll second that.
Thank you, guys.
Good.